You guys all musicians?
Yeah.
No.
Don't. Alex said no. He's lying.
Alex plays the radio. He plays the radio.
I play rock lobster.
Is that an instrument?
That's my instrument. I grab a lobster.
Sir, I'm picking up something on the satellite. Give me a sec, I'm gonna tune it. Sir, I'm having a little interference. I'm checking it out right now. Hold on. I think we found him. Here we go.
You are listening to Wide Range Media Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of Wide Range Media, episode 74. I'm your host, Alex Figueroa, and my co-hosts are...
I'm Pablo.
And this is Ralph Perez from Strange Planet NYC. How are you?
And this is Silvio from About Men Radio. And today we have a special guest. We have
I'm a special guest. I love it.
or just a guest. He's some guy that we picked up off the street.
Oh, nice.
My friend from About Men Radio. He heads up Head Stepper Media. Pedro Rosado. Pedro Rafael Rosado.
Rafael, well, thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Welcome, welcome.
I'm a little scared, actually.
Why? You should be.
I don't know, man.
Be afraid.
I've listened to your show, man. I know how the show gets.
Oh, okay.
Be gentle.
I'll be very gentle.
Okay.
But let's get into our announcements because we got a long show ahead of us.
This week on announcements.
So I would like to thank everyone for listening to the podcast because lately all our listening is viewership is going up, even on YouTube. Even all our podcasts is shooting up, and we're getting a lot of comments on the Abbott and Costello episode.
Hey, Abbott!
Yeah, people like that one.
Yeah.
Yo, that was funny. That show was real funny, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. But other than that, you can follow us at Twitter at Wide Range Media, our website at Wide Range Media Podcast.
Hey, Abbott!
All right, so let's get into discussions at the movie.
This week on Discussions at the Movies.
So this week on Discussion at the Movie, Pablo brought this up. They revealed the Star Wars cast for Episode 9. And he's very excited for this, so I'm going to let him take over for this. Go ahead, buddy.
All right. I know we have a big show, but this is big news, and I just wanted to talk briefly about it. So they announced that they actually started filming Episode 9 today. I really wanted to talk about Carrie Fisher. She's back.
Yeah.
Yes, she is. Yeah.
And the reason why I want to talk about this is because there's two things. One is that they're just using footage, past footage that they filmed. But if you notice that they're only using footage from Episode 7, which I found a little bit odd. They're not using Rian Johnson's stuff. They're using stuff that J.J. Abrams shot. And since he's directing this one too, I'm curious to see if there's something there. With the whole thing with Episode 8, where it took a turn, where like J.J. Abrams was setting some stuff up for like Episode 8 and possibly 9, and then Rian Johnson kind of took it a different way. So I wonder if
you mean he destroyed it? He absolutely exploded it, screwed it up, messed it up, kicked it, stomped it in the face. I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about this because I think anyway. This is a whole nother conversation. I'll be quiet.
No, but you're right. I mean, I think for the most part we all feel this way.
Okay.
No. You guys feel that way. I love the movie. I don't know. I love the movie. You guys feel that way.
I knew I wasn't making this up.
So don't throw me in that hole. They hate Rian Johnson.
I'm sorry I brought this up, Pablo.
Yeah.
All right, we'll spend the next hour on just this.
We really should do a whole show just on this, man. I'm telling you.
Didn't we?
We did like 8 shows on this already.
Every week it's...
Yeah, Rob got a problem with it, and then we start arguing over the damn thing. That's it.
You know what's funny, though? What's funny is I saw it with my kids. I saw Episode 8 with my kids, and they loved it. They absolutely thought it was fantastic. They were like, literally, their heads were exploding, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, what did I get wrong? What am I missing here? They obviously see a different movie, and Alex, I think you're seeing a different movie too. Not in a bad way, but you're actually getting more out of it than I ever did. I thought he destroyed all of J.J. Abrams' work. But I guess I might be wrong, man.
But you just said it there, and I think the reason why is you grew up in the era where episode 4, 5, 6 came out. To me,
those are the only 3 movies that count, man.
Right. So to me, this is the newest ones,
right?
And I enjoy them. So,
right.
But it's 2 generational battling each other.
That's exactly what it is.
That's pretty much what it is.
It is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that they're bringing back Carrie Fisher. And I was afraid that they were going to, in the crawl, they were just going to mention her, that either she passed away or something. And I don't know if that would have done her justice.
No, definitely.
So I'm really glad that they're bringing her back, even if they're using footage. I mean, with the technology today, I'm sure they'll be able to put together something spectacular and give her a good send-off.
You know what's crazy? If because we know it, and when that movie gets released, we're all going to be watching out for that. We're going to be like, okay,
yeah,
let's see how they did this. And we're going to be like, because this is delicate.
Yeah, it is very delicate.
This is very delicate. I mean, she passed away. We're not talking CGI Grand Moff Tarkin Rogue One. We're not talking that. We're talking, you know, a recent
Which
passing.
I'm glad they didn't go that route.
Me too.
I don't know if I would have liked that.
Me too. I'm excited about it, but I'm at the same time I have a little bit of fear, but that's me being insecure.
Well, I mean, the thing is, we all remember when she died. Kathleen Kennedy did on the celebration. She came out and said there ain't gonna be no Carrie Fisher coming out in none of the movies, no CGI, no nothing. Right. Now they're saying now she's in the movie, but J.J. Abrams did say they shot more footage in Force Awakens with her that they now could add into the movie. But the thing is, like you said, there's technology that could blend. And remember, all the old the actors from Force Awakens, they didn't die in none of the movies, so you could.
Well, except Han Solo.
Yeah, but you don't need him. I mean, but other than that, Ray, Ray and Finn and you know and Poe. They could all be in the same scene together, and you could blend the movies together. So I guess that's what they're gonna do. And then with Han Solo, with what's his name, Mark Hamill, Force Ghost. I mean, we all knew that when he died, he was gonna be a Force Ghost. There was no way you could have not figured that one out. But
so you got Mark Hamill, you got Carrie Fisher, and you got Billy D. Williams.
Billy D. Williams,
and those are the 3. That big are ones. Really big. Those are the biggest out of the whole cast. And they started shooting, like you said, today.
Yeah.
My thing is with Lando is, I mean, it pisses me off because I wanted to see him with Han Solo meet for the first time in years. You know what I mean? Like 2 best friends. I mean, they're not best friends, but 2 smugglers meeting each other. But other than that, we're not going to do a Star Wars topic here.
He's going to show up and be like, does that mean I can have my ship back? Colt 45.
Yeah, I was going to say bring me Colt 45.
But all right, so let's get to the actual topic of the show. So Silvio, because Silvio was passing out over there. I thought he was going to sleep while we were talking Star Wars.
No. He's awake.
No, I was just joking. So go ahead, Silvio. Kick us in for the main topic of tonight's show, or today's show.
Let me just explain the topic real quick. What I wanted to bring out is if we could identify some of the songs that came out in the late 70s that bridged into the 80s sound that we know that when we say, oh, that's an 80s song, because we can recognize it. There's a certain sound, there's a feel to it. And I guess I can't really explain it correctly, but I know it. It's I can identify an 80s song when I hear it because it's got that feel, it's got that sound. But this didn't start on January 1st, 1980. Sometime in the late 70s, some songs came out by artists that was, they put out songs that became popular. They have to become popular because we could all come out with some obscure song that came out and point to it and say, yeah, that was it. But nobody heard of that song. Just a few people who were really diehards. But a song that was popular and sounded very different from what was happening at that time, which was pure disco. These are the songs that later on we can point back to and say, that's where the 80s started. One of the reasons I invited my friend Pedro to this talk right here is that growing up with him, I knew that he always had an incredible sense of music style, and he understood it. He's a music historian, if that is a true title somewhere. He really knows his stuff. And so I'm going to let him go first with this.
Oh, good.
Pedro?
Put me on the spot, right? I have no idea what's going on. I thought we were talking Star Wars, man. That's what I thought.
So anyway, Mark Hamill, right?
Mark Hamill cut a record in 1977. All right. I got two songs here. All right. We were going to start with two songs, but
Okay.
the idea, if I understand what you're asking me, these are songs that in the 70s kind of influenced the sound of the 80s and going forward. So the first song I pick is Heart of Glass by Blondie. You know, the thing about that song is it influenced not only the dance music scene in New York and all over the country, but it actually developed the dance rock sound that actually became big in the early 2000s. If you know that like, I mean, even though Clem Burke was the drummer and he's an amazing drummer, I would follow him anywhere and watch him play anything. But the thing about Heart of Glass was that not only was it a rock song, but it worked as a dance song. It wasn't tagged with that disco feel, you know, because at the time disco was, you know, if you were doing a disco song, forget about it. Nobody would, you know, right. You wouldn't be taken seriously. But it was such an influential song, not only through the 80s, but I think even today, that song, you can hear exactly what the genesis of that type of mixture in a lot of today's music. Mm-hmm. And the other song, I would say, now this one is even tighter, even closer to this, is Cars by Gary Newman. Now, the thing about that song, I don't know if you guys remember the song. It was a major, major hit around the world. But it was also one of these songs that you listen to it and you're like, what the hell is that? What am I listening to? You know, it was truly one of these songs that you'd never heard before. The idea is it sounded all electronic. The joke was there's only one synthesizer in that song. And, you know, but it sounds so mechanical. It sounds so robotic, totally influenced the synth pop. Like all those bands that were doing experimental electronic music realized, holy crap, I could make music and people could actually buy it. You know, it's not all these analog blips and bleeps and all this crazy stuff. I can actually make a record and actually make a living at it. And that song, I think, really paved the way for not only electronic music, but bands like the Human League and all this new wave coming out of California and England and all this stuff. I think those two songs, again, late 70s songs that were sort of precursors to not only the sound of the 80s, but maybe not the 90s, but definitely the 2000s, because both those songs, I can still hear a lot of those chords, a lot of those progressions in music today. And, you know, it's like 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Almost 40 years.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Wow. So we're talking 1979?
Yeah, 1979, 39 years ago.
He's good at math too, guys.
No, it's amazing because, you know, if you think about it, the mid-70s, that's really when it started coming. Yes. You know, there was this whole flux of new music that was like pounding out of Great Britain, especially with the punk theme, starting to come out in response to the more classic bands. You know, we had Queen, we had The Who, we had Led Zeppelin, we had Pink Floyd. You know, we had groups like that. And all of a sudden, these punk guys started coming out with, you know what? We need shorter songs. We need shorter songs. Our attention span's not that big. So
we only want 3 chords, just 3 chords.
Yeah, 3 chords.
Yep.
And then, the Ramones coming out of Queens.
Yeah.
All the way to the Sex Pistols and the Damned coming out of, I know the Sex Pistols came out of Great Britain. I'm not sure where the Damned came out of. But, groups like that, it was like this. And from there, mixed in with the disco era, what Pedro was talking about. So, it started evolving. I loved it.
Yeah, one of the songs Pedro mentioned was one that was on your list. Why don't you give us both songs?
Heart of Glass by Blondie. I mean, you hear the disco rhythms in that song. Yet that was a new wave post-punk band.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. They weren't playing at Studio 54. They were playing at CBGB's down in the East Village.
Yeah.
That's where they were playing. So,
Pablo played there.
Yeah, so did I.
Oh, okay.
I got thrown out of there.
Oh, snap.
True story.
Whoa. So,
Silvio, do you have a story?
No.
I'll share it next time I'm on there.
But so and I remember I used to watch Solid Gold 79. Remember that show on Channel 11?
Yes, I do.
And they had the commercials for it, and they would show Blondie performing that song, but it was disco themed. And I always wondered what the heck is going on, And then they started mixing in some other stuff. Oh, by the way, here's another thing about Blondie, if you really want to get into the theme of how things started evolving. Another form of music was starting to also evolve coming out of the Bronx here in the late 70s, early 80s, what we now know as hip hop, right? With Grandmaster Flash and
Sugar Hill
Gang and all that kind of stuff. But then you start thinking about how Blondie decided to kind of integrate some of that kind of rhythmic rapping thing in their song Rapture.
Fat Five Freddy told me everybody slide. DJ spinning, I said, my, Flash is fast, Flash is cool, Francois, c'est pas, Flash ain't no dude, and you don't stop, sure shot, go out to the parking lot, and you get in your car and drive real far, and you drive all night, and then you see a light, and it comes right down, and lands on the ground, and out.
Right, towards the end of the song, she's rapping in the song.
Yep, she's rapping.
So the influence, it's starting to come up. It's deviating away from what we knew in the early 70s, late 60s. It's pretty good.
Well, to follow up with what you're saying right there, I mean, that whole album.
Yeah.
Because, there were quite a few songs on there that you just mentioned Rapture, which has a little bit of what we now call hip-hop, but back then it was just rap. And there was another song there that actually had a true disco sound. And then the songs that we're talking about right now, which really bridge into the 80s. So, I mean, that whole album was really a phenomenal album for the time.
Absolutely. And another one that was definitely a huge influence on the bands that have influenced me was a group called Joy Division.
Oh, are you gonna say what I think you're gonna say? Because that was almost my choice.
Yeah.
Are you gonna say? I'll let you say it. Yeah. Go.
They started recording in 1979, and by mid 1980, they had a hit called "Love Will Tear Us Apart."
Yes. That was we almost had two of the same songs.
Well, there you go. We're synced in because we
are.
So, you know how many groups were influenced by Joy Division? U2 was one of those groups. The Cure was one of those groups.
Yep.
And
U2 actually went to England to record with their producer.
There you go.
That's how influenced they were. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
The thing about Joy Division is that nobody heard of them here in the United States. They were they were a total, except when that song came out. And that song, they broke up because the lead singer committed suicide.
Yeah.
And that song was a hit after he died here in the United States. But it's such a terribly sad song. You're thinking, you almost feel kind of weird when you listen to that song. It's like, my God, you see what this guy is dealing with. And it's just... It's so effective, not only because it's a great song, it's a very simple song. Those guys couldn't play their instruments. They learned a couple, no, it's true. They learned a couple of chords, and legitimately that sound that they have, especially when you hear New Order, the bassist, Peter Hook, that sound is just him because he didn't know how to play the thing, so he made up a way how to play. He just played the higher strings. And you get a band like that, guys that don't know how to even play their instruments, and 40 years later, they're still influential. Just blows my mind. And they're actually still together.
It's funny, U2, when they first formed in the drummer's kitchen, in their mother's kitchen back in 1976, while they were still in high school.
Yep.
They didn't know how to play their instruments for jack.
Yep.
They didn't know how to play it. They, eventually learned chords and everything. And I think that was one of the main reasons why they influenced me the most to pick up the guitar and learn. Because as soon as I found out from them about their history, about how they learned how to play, I said, oh, wait a minute. You mean I don't have to learn how to actually read music to play an instrument?
Right.
Well, screw that. I'm going to go buy a guitar. And I did, and I taught myself.
Exactly.
My life has never been the same.
And I guess there's still hope for me, too.
There's no hope for you, Silvio. There's no hope. No hope.
The influences just keep pouring out, and it started when we were kids. This was all happening. When we were growing into our adolescence, we took in these songs as part of the soundtrack of our youth.
And that was the thing. That was the thing about the 80s too, especially that time from 77, I would say, from 77 to like 82, here in New York City specifically. Did you guys all grow up in New York?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
The thing about the music scene in New York is that everything was happening at the same time.
Yes.
Even sometimes at the same party. Like you'd go to a house party in 1980, and you're going to hear disco. You're going to hear hip-hop, you're going to hear rap, you're going to hear R&B, you're going to hear punk. The B-52s was that song, what was it?
Love Shack?
No,
that was later.
It wasn't Private
Rock the Lobster?
Rock Lobster,
not
song.
Rock Lobster.
Every
Rock
house
Lobster,
party, in the, from 78 to 82, when they wanted, hey, play a punk song, boom, they dropped Rock Lobster. I mean, it was this,
and that was the original singer.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing about the mixture of that sound is that it also influenced the music scene in New York. Like, if you were a musician in New York, you didn't have to just play. I mean, okay, I'm a Latino, I'm a musician, I'm a singer-songwriter. I don't have to play salsa. You know what I mean? I don't have to play Latin music.
Oh, man, that pissed me off growing up. I used to get that.
I used to get that myself.
Yeah, you guys didn't play Rock Lobster?
No.
we played Rock Lobster.
Ralph wasn't cool. He didn't play Rock Lobster.
For your titis and your tios, you guys didn't play that?
No? Yeah, we played Rock Lobster, the cumbia version. That's the version we played.
La langosta de piedra.
No, it was serious, man. But it was, you had to. My own family was like, oh, why don't you learn how to play the congas or something like that? Why? I mean, there's every type of music going on in that period from 79 to 82. Anyway, you guys are getting me all hyped now. I'm like,
can have influences.
Yeah, of course.
But the problem is that people want to put you in a box.
Yeah, that's true.
People want to put you in a box. I had a coworker a couple years ago who knew that I was playing, that I knew how to play Pink Floyd songs and knew how to play a rock and acoustic rhythm. She came out with her, hey, bring your guitar back for this event. Bring a Spanish guitar. I wanted to slap her. Of course, I cannot hit women. It wasn't a Spanish guitar. I'm not a Spanish musician.
Right.
I'm a rock musician. I just happen to be Puerto Rican.
Right. There you go. Are you guys all musicians?
Yeah.
No.
Alex said no. He's lying.
Alex plays the radio. He plays the radio.
I play Rock Lobster.
Is that an instrument?
That's my instrument. I grab a lobster.
All right, we're off the rails. Let's move along. I kind of know some of the songs that were selected by both Alex and Pablo. But so just so that we kind of keep the theme going in a similar fashion, we're going to let Pablo go last because his is relatively different from our selection. I'm going to go next, and then we're going to go to Alex and then Pablo.
Silvio's got polka. I know it. He's got polka.
John Candy from Home Alone. Polka.
I got some Argentinian tango.
Stop.
Yeah. Now, Carlos Gardel sang.
Nobody got that.
Por una cabeza, todas las locuras, tu boca que besa, borra la tristeza, calma la amargura. Por una cabeza, y ella me olvida, ¿qué importa perderme mil veces la vida? ¿Para qué vivir?
You guys know, well, Pablo got it. Do you guys know it? Okay, never mind. But actually, it's kind of funny that you say this because part of the two songs that I selected was when I was early in high school. And my early part of high school was in Argentina. So when I was in Argentina, and you got to remember, this is back in 78, 79, and 80. Back then, we didn't have the internet. And anything that came out here in the United States.
I don't think we had radio either.
We had that little pterodactyl inside the box that came out, and threw out an antenna, kind of like Flintstone.
That's messed up. Messed up.
That is wrong, man.
I know. Why are you putting up people down? See, look at you saying we don't have radios.
Our people. You're the one who started it. You're saying our people.
Unbelievable.
Anyway, in high school in Argentina, everybody would come to me and ask me to translate the songs because I was the guy from the United States. I knew English and obviously knew Spanish. And so it was, let's talk about all of these songs. And I really got into a lot of music at the time because the other thing is in Argentina at that time was under military rule. So a lot of imported albums were forbidden. They still made it in.
You mean like Greece?
Greece.
But Pablo brought that
I snuck that in.
As he would, that's right, he would sing and dance it for all our cousins.
Pablo is going to teach you how to smuggle in grease through his shirt. His grease shirt.
To the black market.
So one of the things that was very popular for us in Argentina growing up was finding songs that were different from what was playing at the time, disco songs. One of the songs that came out in 1979 was My Sharona by the Knack.
Great song.
And excellent song. And definitely a song that was very different from anything that, was coming out at the time. I mean, Funky Town was coming out at the time. Donna Summer's music, which I love Donna Summers. I thought she was a fantastic person and everything. Great singer, incredible vocals. But, it's that whole disco sound from that time period. But My Sharona by the Knack was just completely different. And I think it does a very good job of introducing the type of music that we start to hear at the beginning of the 80s.
Power pop, yeah, power pop.
Yeah, definitely the power pop. Yep, absolutely. The other one might be a little bit more obscure at that time. It's a song that if you listen today, and I'm sure all of us here recognize it, and most of our listeners would recognize it as well, the first thing you'll think about is, that came out back in 81 or 82, right? No, this song that I'm about to mention actually came out in 1975. It's by Roxy Music. It's Love is the Drug.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Nice song.
Isn't that a great song? That song is so different from anything that came out in 1975, 1976, or anything in the 70s. And like I said, you listen to that song, it's like, obviously that came out, in 81, right when all that other music came out that sounded like that. No, this came out in 1975. It moved up the charts in Great Britain a little bit, got as far as 30 here in the United States. But it really wasn't that hard hitting. Definitely not on radio. It's not a radio tune, radio song for the time. But in Argentina, we did hear it. I heard it for the first time there, and it kind of stuck with me. But listening to it today, anybody would say definitely 80s.
I'm fascinated that neither of your songs were harder. You know what I mean? Like I thought seriously, I thought you would have some type of like hard rock or even proto metal on there or something.
Hold My Beer.
There you go. Okay, good.
Great segue. All right, Pablo.
All right, so I'm going to go a different route here.
Switch gears.
Because a lot of the music that you guys mention, I know of it, but it's not my style, and maybe I heard it a few times on the radio, but it's not music or songs that I own and had or listened to, other than maybe just when it was on the radio and I just happened to hear it. But that's because I grew up
on Grease Lightning.
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah, that influenced the 80s. But I mean, I grew up listening to just heavier music, and the 80s was my influential decade. I mean, that's when I started listening to music, and it really became not only something that I enjoy listening to, but it actually became a part of who I am and who I am today. So I went a different route here, and in the late 70s, during the whole punk era, and I wasn't into punk at all, and the new wave era, which I wasn't into at all, there was another movement that was coming out that was rebelling against this style of music, and that is the new wave of British heavy metal. Mm-hmm. And the new wave of British heavy metal, a lot of great hard rock and heavy metal music came out of that. And this is different than like Black Sabbath, which is many consider to be the grandfather of heavy metal. And Black Sabbath, we're talking about early 70s.
73.
What I'm going to talk about is just a little bit different. It was this new style of music that was very underground, it wasn't radio friendly. Like the music that I'm going to, and the bands that I'm going to talk about, didn't get any radio play.
Airplay at all.
And one of the bands, which is probably considered one of the biggest bands in the world, even till today, got famous with no radio play at all. And this was before the MTV era also.
Really? This was then before MTV came out?
Yeah, and they didn't release any really videos. At least one of the bands that I talk about. And then a lot of the videos that they did release was just all like live footage videos. There were no concept videos or anything like that. And the two bands that came out of the new wave of British heavy metal is Judas Priest and Iron Maiden.
Oh, yeah. I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, and Judas Priest, which is older than Maiden, they put out a few albums already, but the first few albums that they put out, even though you can hear, influence there in the music, was mostly just rock, or like just a little heavier rock. They were influenced with Southern rock type music, but not until they released British Steel, which they started recording in '79, but actually came out in early '80. But they didn't start recording until '79. That's when they really started to define what many considered power metal. Okay, and if you look at heavy metal and hard rock, there's different genres of metal.
Yep.
And my brother mentioned earlier, like hair metal or glam metal or pop metal. That can kind of all fall. But this was power metal. And power metal was really defined by riffs and not necessarily chords, where pop music is really just chords, like 3 chords or 4 chords. Where power metal was riff-based and power chords. And Priest really led the way. And the song that I'm going to pick is Breaking the Law.
Breaking the law, 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 breaking the law. So much more than gold.
Oh, great song, man.
Which is probably, if you talk to someone who somewhat knows Priest,
That's what
that's the song that they'll probably know. Yeah, it's a great song, and if you listen to the song, it's a riff. It's really a riff.
Absolutely.
Even when it gets to the chorus, it's just a riff. And that really defined the 80s power metal and heavy metal scene and all the bands. Even later on when we have like speed metal bands and thrash metal bands like Metallica and Anthrax and Slayer and Testament and Overkill, which happens to be from New York City, and also Anthrax. They all say that they were influenced by the new wave of British heavy metal. And then the other band, which happens to be one of my personal favorites, is Iron Maiden. And they also came out of, they started recording their first album, their debut album in '79, and they didn't release it until 1980. And it was self-titled. And Iron Maiden really just, they were more influenced by punk music. If you listen to their first 2 albums.
It's true.
There's a lot of punk influence there. And even their singer had that punk vibe. And it wasn't until their 3rd album came out that they got rid of him and they brought in Bruce Dickinson. Which really just opened up Maiden in terms of their musical styles. But the song that I'm going to choose from the first album, from the debut album, is Running Free.
Just 16, big I'm drunk, out of money, out of love. I got nowhere to call my own. Hit the gas and here I go. I'm running free, yeah. I'm running free. I'm running free, yeah. Oh, I'm running free. I spend the night in LA jail and listen to.
Okay.
And that one has, again, riff driven, but it has a really awesome bass line. And that's really how the song starts. And, you really, other than maybe funk music, where bass is really, up front, with the rhythm section of funk music, metal, a lot of times the bass just gets buried because of all the overdriven guitars. And sometimes you have 2 guitar players. So you have all this overdriven sound and saturated sound that the bass sometimes gets buried. But not Iron Maiden. And that's not Steve Harris, because not only was he one of the main songwriters, he made sure that his sound was heard. And if you listen to Maiden, the bass is all over the place there. And I'm saying that in a good way, because he's a phenomenal player. But Running Free it's bass driven, and it has a cool bass line, but it has a riff, and that to me is what defined the 80s metal, power metal, and even all the other different genres of metals that came out.
It's funny. What I realized that every single one of the groups that we all mentioned pretty much had their own sound and didn't compromise. Devo, Blondie. When you focus on being a package rather than providing your art to people, then it's like nobody remembers you. Right. Nobody remembers you because you didn't stand out from anything else. Iron Maiden didn't have the look. Judas Priest didn't have the look, but they are the most influential rock bands, or two of the most influential heavy rock bands ever. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's sticking with your sound. It's what brought you to the party. And then U2 is another example, even though we didn't really put them on the list. They've been making the same music for 40 years, 42 years.
Yeah.
But they're true to the sound.
They're true to their own sound.
They're true to their own sound, and they're true to the influence.
And they respect it too.
And the thing about U2, a band like U2, is they still have young fans.
They do.
I know
a new generation of fans. You're right.
They have you go to one of their concerts, and you figure that you're going to see people, like Silvio called me before, an old guy, sitting, like 50,000 of us sitting in the audience. But they're millennials in there.
Yeah.
They're Alexes over there.
I think we pretty much covered the topic the way we wanted to. We really went a wide range of genres.
I see what you did there.
That was a good one.
Wow,
Thank
nice
you.
one.
That was a good one.
Very
Nice.
subtle.
Wow,
very
what did
subtle.
he do? What did I miss?
Golf club.
Wow, he's on the show and I get it. I'm just a special guest. What's going on here? Wide range.
Oh,
nice done. Nicely
Oh,
done.
Lord, man. We forgot Meatloaf. Was it Meatloaf in the 80s?
70s.
70s.
1977. 1977 was.
His sound really didn't last through the 80s though.
No, it came back in the 90s.
It did in the 90s, yeah.
We're ending the show here. We're going to go around the table and we're going to plug. So, Silvio, start off with your About Men Radio.
About Men Radio. Listen to the About Men Radio podcast. Read the About Men Radio blogs at aboutmenradio.com.
Ralph.
And we have Strange Planet NYC, my YouTube page. Go to YouTube and type in Strange Planet NYC in the search engine. You will find my channel where you see my reviews of movies, previews to movies, collectibles, and other things that come up in the world of pop culture, movies, and television.
Pedro.
I do. If you guys want to take a listen to, like Silvio said, About Men Radio, also Robles and Rosado, and I produce a music show for the New York Times called Popcast. So please take a listen to that. Produce it through Headstepper Media.
Oh, one more. Pop Tech Jam.
Oh yes, Pop Tech Jam. That's my. I do a tech show, Pop Tech Jam. I do podcasts for my whole. That's all I do until I drop dead. That's all I'm going to do. And guys, thanks again for having me on the show.
Thank you for being a part of it.
And you can follow us at widerangemediapodcast.com. That's our website, or at Wide Range Media on Twitter. And then if you want to subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/Wide Range Media. We're going to have more content. Next week, we're going to announce our countdown to Halloween contest. That's going to be very fun. But other than that, I hope you enjoy. Catch you later.
Death to America and butter sauce. Don't boil me. I'm still alive. Iraq lobster. Iraq lobster?